Ever feel like the resources and advice out there for women are missing something essential? I thought so too, which is why more than 6 years ago, I created She Said, She Said. I'm Laura Cox Kaplan, and after 3 decades in communications and then advocacy and now juggling motherhood and entrepreneurship, trust me, friend, I get it. Making a real impact takes more than just passion. It takes the right mindset, the right skills, the right investments, and the right community. On this show, we dive deep with incredible women from all walks of life who have been there. We uncover the secrets to building influence, navigating tricky relationships, and staying true to ourselves even when it's tough. And let's face it, it often is. I also throw in my own favorite productivity and life hacks, things that have shifted my perspective and might help you too. Wherever you are in your journey, my goal here is to leave you inspired to define success your way and to help you build the confidence you need to tackle your biggest goals. Subscribe today and let's unlock your full potential, your confidence, and your greatest influence. Hey friend, happy new year and welcome back to She Said, She Said podcast and a brand new year of content that is designed to help you live your best and fullest life. I am really glad to have you here and really excited to welcome a new year along with you. So January arrived here in DC like a snowy beast. And snow is fine for a couple of days. In fact, I kind of like it. But then when it turns into that cold, frozen, brownish sludge, I am over it all pretty quickly. But all that said, and weather notwithstanding, January is actually my favorite month. I love the focus on resets and the fact that everywhere you look, whether it's on social media or in the newspaper or on television or wherever you spend your time and that garners your attention, content is focused on growth and productivity, on positivity and optimism and goal setting and just all the things. I love it so much. And my guess is you probably do too, which is maybe part of why you're here with me. Now, admittedly, if you let them, all these things and this hyper-focused attention to more can actually make you a bit stressed. But I tend to see this time of year as a great reset and an opportunity to double down on a few annual practices that have become near and dear to me and that I want to share with you today. I believe that these are practices that have been key to my own personal and professional development, and hopefully they will help you too. One of these practices is picking a word of the year. I started this a few years ago, actually as a complement to a couple of other practices that I have used and that I have taught for the better part of a decade as part of a women's leadership development course that I developed. But even our best practices can benefit from a little refresh as we grow, evolve, and change. What works in one era of our lives may or may not work as well in another. And so staying open to this fact is really important because the only thing that I am 100% certain of is change. And we all change in ways that are subtle, maybe sometimes dramatic. You look up one day and you find that you are maybe a very different person, or you have very different likes and interests than you did before, things that really surprise you. It's kind of crazy. And given the certainty of change, it's also weird that when we change and when we evolve, and when we grow, it does tend to surprise us, which I think is really funny. We talk a great deal about the topic of change and growth and evolution on this podcast. It is a favorite topic of mine and something that I am just endlessly fascinated by. And we also talk about some of the particularly useful tools that we should all have in our respective toolkits. And again, the value of having tools that you draw from, they're going to be most valuable when you customize them to suit your own needs and priorities and developmental goals. And so I say that up front before I really get into this episode. One of those important tools is a good set of practices for starting the new year. So today I'm going to dive into my word of the year, what it is, why and how I picked it, and in particular, the why, because I think when you hear the word, the different dimensions and the way that I'm thinking about it probably will not be obvious to you, at least not at first. But before I share my word, let's talk about a couple of other practices that I love to use to lay the groundwork for a new year. I am a big believer in making sure that goals and objectives are anchored to something, ideally to those values that are most important to, in this case, me or you, and the core priorities that you turn to when making tough decisions or facing major juncture points. And those tend to include the people who are most important to us, the priorities that are most important to us, really our value system. And if you've not spent a lot of time thinking about that, it's worth spending some time on this topic because it really can be helpful in making your goals stickier. If this were your last day on this planet, those would be the people, the experiences that you would most like to see. And those values would be the underpinnings by which you evaluate whether what you did here on this earth aligned with what was most important to you. And I don't mean to get dark here, certainly in January here at the new year. I'm just making the point, somewhat belabored, that your goals and your objectives are more likely to be successful when they are aligned with your values. One of my favorite exercises that I use for testing myself against my own values to make sure that they are aligned with my goals is something that I call a personal year in review. This is essentially a look back over the last 52 weeks, 12 months, and 365 days that have made up the past year. And I sit down with my calendar, and I also, at this point, use my photo app as well. And I go back through my entire calendar as well as all of my photographs for the year. And I relive each of those milestones and moments, especially the ones that are captured in photos, because that visual image really helps me bring that moment right back into focus. I open up a Google Doc and I list the months January through December. And under each month, I make notes of the milestones and sort of the big things that happened, those things that inspired me, those relationships that were really critical to me, some experience that I had, maybe a milestone that was hit. Then next to each line, I assign it a category. And those categories ultimately align with goals and values and personal and professional priorities. My list includes connections/relationships, experiences/inspiration, growth, wellness, collaboration. And within those buckets, I oftentimes have sub goals. Might be something related to specific relationships that I'm working on, or maybe ways that I want to grow or further develop my personal and professional network, for example. Under wellness, I made notes of healthy recipes that I tried and also those recipes that I made up that sparked not only my creativity, but that in some cases actually worked and became sort of part of our healthy menu for the year. Now, once I complete the list, then I go back and I ask myself a few questions that I divide up into a number of categories. Now, in order to help you with this, I have put together a little worksheet that you can download, which has all of these categories listed and all of these suggested questions. But the bottom line is you're probably going to have your own list of questions that you ask yourself. You should customize this so that it really works for you. But this is something that I have found works well for me. Again, it might work for you too. The first bucket is overall reflection. As I look back on those 365 days, I ask myself, what were the biggest highlights of this year? Achievements, joyful moments, big or small, etc. Then what were the biggest challenges that I faced? And what did I learn from those challenges? How did I grow and change this year? What am I most grateful for from this past year? Whether it's people or experiences or opportunities. Then the next big bucket is relationships slash connections. And I ask myself, how did my relationships evolve this year? Family, friends, etc. Which relationships brought me the most joy? Were there any relationships that need more care and attention? Did I meet anyone new who made a positive impact on my life? How did I grow my personal and professional network? Then the third bucket is career and professional development. And again, I want to just side note for a second, a number of these categories will ultimately fall in more than one category, but this is just for sort of simplicity's sake. So the third bucket is career and personal and professional development. What progress did I make toward my career this year? Were there any promotions or awards or maybe new skills or projects that I started, maybe accomplished? How satisfied am I with my current career path and what might I change? You might include financial goals under this bucket as well. And then the fourth bucket is health and well being. How was my physical health this year? Exercise, nutrition, sleep. How did I perform against those goals? How was my mental and emotional well being? Maybe stress level, self care practices, that type of thing. Did I prioritize my well being enough? And then what steps might I take to improve my health and well being next year? The fifth bucket is personal growth and learning. What new things did I learn this year? Skills, hobbies, knowledge. Did I step outside of my comfort zone and try something new that was really hard for me? Did I contribute to my community or to the world around me? And what were some areas where I still want to grow and learn? And then the sixth bucket is experiences slash inspiration slash sparked curiosity. And this is oftentimes the bucket where I put travel or just experiences that I had over the course of the year that really sparked my curiosity and my interest and filled up my cup. Then the seventh bucket is my plan of action. This is the category where I take all of those things and I summarize it into those goals that I want to work on for the coming year. Now, as I said, I have summarized these questions into a worksheet that you can download directly from the show notes. And of course, I would urge you to customize these questions for yourself in a way that works well for you. Once I complete this exercise, it gives me a really good sense about where I am and what I need to work on and what progress I've made. And I also inevitably find it is a tremendous boost to my confidence because I'm really looking back on all those benchmarks, all those little things, big things, just things that mattered to me. And I find that it really boosts my confidence. It really boosts my gratitude. It just gets my year started off right. Now, you may be wondering, where does the word of the year fit in? And this is the point where I pick the word because I'm looking back over 365 days and I have this summary of all the things, right? And that is where I began to think about what is a word or concept or maybe a couple of words that really summarize my overall objectives for the next year. I like to pick a word that is broad enough to encompass a number of different dimensions. Now, last year, my word was lighter, as in to lighten up physically and focus on wellness and health, and specifically dropping a few of those very stubborn pounds that I had had trouble losing. I made great progress there, yay me. But my cholesterol is still a little high, so this will remain a goal for me. I also, as part of lightening up, I worked on decluttering and I made some great progress. But as it turns out, I was not able to spend 100% of my time and my energy on decluttering and organizing. And so I had to be okay with progress in that area, not necessarily completion. This will continue to be a goal and something that I will stay focused on, but I think it's really important to cut yourself some slack when you cannot focus 100% of your time on a particular goal or objective, even if it's important. If you're able to give yourself some credit for making progress against that goal, that in and of itself is a victory. So I'm patting myself on the back and keeping it on my list for next year. We will continue to plug away at that going forward. And then the other aspect of lightening up was lightening my workload and how I think about work and being willing to give myself a little extra time when I need it, not forcing myself to produce episodes when I was completely out of energy and fuel, really stepping back and allowing myself the time and space to recover and to lighten the load when I needed to. I took a couple months off in the summer. I skipped weeks here and there with the podcast just so that I could refuel in a way that would enable me to come back stronger and more energetic and more ready to hopefully create content that's helpful to you. You get the idea. So, as I thought about that progress and my year in review, I kept coming back to this concept and this word capacity. Not a very sexy word, is it? But capacity, while important, did not seem like the right word to me. It seemed to be like the after effect, right? So I kept thinking about it. And then about a week ago, I was dropping my daughter off at a tennis lesson and I was scrolling through iTunes while I was in the car, and a podcast caught my eye. It's hosted by the author Joanna Penn. And if you've ever considered writing a nonfiction book, you may have read some of her great books on the subject of writing books. Anyway, the podcast episode in the title had Word of the Year. And so, of course, I clicked on it because I'm always curious about how other people think about picking their word. Now, Joanna's word also happens to be my word, thanks in part to her inspiration. And it is, are you ready? Leverage. Now, as I said before, this word obviously requires some explanation. But at its core, it's about leveraging what I have and what I've built in order to gain more capacity to accomplish some new goals and objectives. For example, this archive of She Said podcast content is so incredibly rich. It's more than 320 hours of content, and that includes conversations with incredible women, as well as the work that I have put into solo episodes. Spending time focusing on how I can draw out more benefit from work that already exists, I think is a really important goal. In addition, because change is constant, sometimes when I go back and listen to older episodes, the content and the advice and perspective actually hits me differently, or I hear something that maybe I didn't notice before, even if I listen to the episode multiple times, which I always do. It might hit me because of where I am in my life, which I find kind of amazing as well. So, thinking about ways that I can build on what I know, what I've built, the network that I already have, and continuing to build that, but also leverage it a bit differently than maybe I have been doing currently. And being more willing to go to my network and ask for help. Asking for help is something that I am not particularly good at. I'd be the first to admit it. But being willing to go to my network, leverage my network, asking for help, those are some things that I'm thinking about. Also, more collaborations and leveraging my existing network and their networks for opportunities to collaborate more. We did more of that last year. I want to do even more this year. Another aspect of this word leverage is also using AI. I used AI so much last year, really learned some great basics of content creation using my existing work, but also developing it a bit more fully with AI, finding other dimensions and ways that I could use it. Really, really valuable. So I'll continue to explore ways that we can use that. I think from the standpoint of starting a new year too, and thinking about using AI to dust off your resume, refresh your bio, refresh your LinkedIn bio, for example. Many of these things you can use existing information that you have, but actually retool it with the use of AI, which is it can be a great time saver. Again, a cautionary note, you don't want to use it as it spits it out at you. You do want to revise it and refine it and make sure that it has your authentic voice incorporated in it, but it can be a real time saver, and it can be so great for ideation, which is really the place where I use it so much. So, my guess is leverage, my word, may or may not speak to you in the same way that it speaks to me. And so I'm curious, if you pick a word, I'd love to hear what that word is, or maybe the process that you engage in, and also hear a little bit more about how you kick off the new year. If you do something that is unique or special, that's working well for you, I'd love to hear about that. Or if you're having trouble and you're needing some help, I'd love to hear from you. I would love to hear your thoughts on any of these things. So please send them my way. You can reach me via the email link in the show notes for this episode. This is episode 315, or you can email us directly at info@shesaid.media. Now, friend, coming up next week, we'll be talking with Harvard Business School professor, the delightful Allison Wood Brooks, who has written a terrific book called Talk. It is all about how to get more from your conversations and some really great tricks for leveraging some opportunities to turn conversations into relationships. Until then, I'm really grateful for you, friend. Thanks for listening. Take care. And remember, She Said podcast is a weekly production of She Said Media. I'll see you next week.